Agree.
All right, so let's talk about Brennan Vernon. All right, let's talk a little bit about Brennan. Let's get this right here. There we go. Okay, now we got it. Brennan Vernon was committed the day after Keon Keeley. They were kind of a 1-2 punch. They actually made the decision to commit a day apart. So two very talented players. This is an interesting ranking range for me.
Yes, it is.
One has you at 15. The other has you at 151. To me, I think he's kind of in between that. I think he's closer to the ESPN ranking for me. Mm-hmm. I don't view him as a top 15 player yet. I think he's got some tools to impress. Hey, you know what we forgot to do with Keon? We forgot to do comps.
Okay.
You want to do it real quick? We're going to kind of like, guys that they compare him to. Why don't you go ahead and give your comp for Keon? Because I don't have a better one than the one you have. So kind of explain that one.
So we're going to preface this again. I want whenever I do a comp, it is always a stylistic.
Same here,
Brian.
Yeah.
Whenever we do comps on this show, it is always a stylistic comp. I am not telling you that Keon Keeley is going to be this football player, especially with the NFL career that this guy has had. Okay, so it's just from a long arms, athletic, good frame. All of those things I see in his game.
Tools comparison. That's basically what it is. It's a tools comparison.
We'll call it a toolbox comparison. And I think that he similarly plays to a guy like a Chandler Jones. That's what I see. Because Chandler Jones, when he's coming out of Syracuse, was long, like 35-plus inch arms, which is an incredible number for a defensive end. 6'5", and some change. And I think he was around 250, 255, if I remember correctly. Now he's playing up near 265. Again, coming out of Syracuse. And he's developed into one of the best pass rushers in the NFL for two reasons, what I just highlighted there. One is his length. He has the ability to get inside of offensive linemen and establish inside positioning and then also threaten the outside track. But then uncommon for his size is the fact that he has great speed around the track and he has closing speed that is rare for a guy his size. So stylistically speaking, I see a lot of Chandler Jones in this kid's game. And I think that just similarly, if you watch a Cardinals game, think of how he wins as a football player, similar to how I think Keon Keeley wins as a player.
Well, I think the other thing too with Chandler Jones is he's a guy to me that is not your typical, like he's got the length that Khalid Kareem has, right? But he's got a thinner frame, more explosiveness. And I think that's a good comp. I mean, I racked my brain all day today. I was like, I can't do the same one that Ryan does on the first guy. But I was like, there's not a better comp than that, in my opinion. I think it's a really good comp. And I think the other thing I've liked about Chandler Jones, you talked about Chandler Jones being a great pass rusher.
Yep.
I don't know what kind of all-around player he is in the NFL. I do remember him at Syracuse, though, and he was a very strong all-around player at Syracuse. He could play the run. He could set the edge. He could do those things. He could play the run. Obviously, he was at his best as a pass rusher and had, really outstanding numbers. He didn't have outstanding numbers he's had outstanding numbers in the pros. He didn't have outstanding numbers in college. He was more of a guy that was drafted off of tools, and then he got hurt his last year and didn't play a ton, but you could see the all-around game from him. And I think that to me is what I saw in college.
For
and
sure.
I think Keon has a lot of that too. Brennan Vernon, we do have a different comp, but we come from the same place. My comp for Brennan Vernon is a Notre Dame guy. It's Khalid Kareem. He's not quite as long as Khalid, which we'll get into, but I think the reason I like this is because I think when I look at the fit, right, and you see Keon being like that Viper player, that speed boundary edge rusher. To me, Brennan is a power player. He is a guy that's a lot like a Khalid Kareem. He can be a disruptive power player. And I see a guy that's got that thick frame. He's already 250. He's got long arms, not like super long arms. Khalid had ridiculous arm length. He was like over 35 inches, I believe.
Yeah.
And so did Adi Takumba Ogundiji. But I think when I look at Brennan compared to like Adi Ogundiji was more of a thin young guy that grew into his frame and still was only 260 by the time not even 260 by the time he graduated. Khalid Kareem showed up like 240 plus. Brennan's going to show up 250 at Notre Dame. And he's got that big frame, that thick, just country strong frame. He's not fat at all. I mean, I've seen him up close in person. I saw him last April at the Columbus I forget. I think it's like it wasn't Under Armour. I forget which one it was. It was a camp in Columbus, and he's got a good frame. He's not like a belly kid. He's just a big, thick, what you think of a country boy. You know what I mean? Just that kind of frame. And that's where I like the Khalid comp. I think also Khalid was a run defender first and a pass rusher second. And I think that Brennan fits that mold really well, which is why I don't view him as a top 25 guy. I view him as more of like a 50 to 75 to 100 kind of guy, more for me, which is still really good. But there's some things he's got to really improve on. And I think one of the things that hurts him is I don't think he plays in a system in high school that allows him to maximize his tools the way that he should. And I think that hurts him a little bit too. Or at least not hurts him, but makes it a little more difficult to see, can he rush on the edge? They don't really let him do that a ton in high school. They play him more in heavy techniques, and then it makes it easier for teams to double team him. So his ranking profile is very interesting. And I wrote about this on the message board yesterday. You're seeing more and more of this, and I don't necessarily love it. I love the fact that people are willing to put their opinion out there, no matter what anybody else has. But some of these are just absurd. Like you've got one person's got Emil Wagner's number 29, and everybody else has him outside the top 100. It's like,
crazy.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
But he's got a pretty wide variation. I definitely view him as a top 100 player. There's no question about it, with a high ceiling. That's how I view Brennan Vernon.
Yep. And I think I'm slightly higher, just a little bit. I would say I view him more in the 35 to 40 range, somewhere in that ballpark. I think that he could fight back to 5-star status, which I know he's still in. I guess in Rivals, I'm assuming if he's number 15th overall.
Well, they don't have him as a 5-star because they have this dumb thing where they don't give out 5 stars early on. Okay. So even when he was ranked number 8, he was not a 5-star.
Gotcha.
And it's all about, when they're going to do some summer release of the 5 stars. There's going to end up being 35 stars in the class. Yeah. So as long as you're number 32, you're a 5-star. That's just the way they do it. It's really stupid. But yes, if he stays in this ranking range, Ryan, he will be a 5-star. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. And I would say that I think you illustrated kind of my opinions on him as well. I definitely think that he is much more power end that is going to be, I think he's going to be a little advanced in the run game, because I think that while the defensive system that he does playing in an odd man front, a 3-man front where he's playing 4-eye, more heavy techniques, like you said, inside techniques, that does hurt what we can see from him as a true edge rusher. But I think it does help him because he has to get hands-on and he has to be active in the run game. They ask a lot of him. He's almost two-gapping at a lot of ways in a lot of reps. So I think that that's helped him in the run game. So that's kind of where it led to my comparison for like a similar train of thought. I see Sam Hubbard a little bit, which is me comparing what Sam Hubbard became, not what the prospect he was, because he played like safety, outside linebacker.
In high school, they were completely different players. Yeah.
Right. But when Hubbard left for the NFL, what he's kind of developed in is, I think this year for Cincinnati, he ended up with like 7.5 sacks, which is like a solid number. Like, it's not anything substantial, but he had double-digit tackles for loss, and he's one of the best run defenders in the NFL. And he, again, has that long frame. We talked about his development. I think that at 6'4", 6'5", somewhere in that ballpark, Brennan Vernon's going to probably be about 265, maybe 270.
And Sam Hubbard was a little over 6'5", 270 at the combine. He's now listed at 265 in the NFL, but he bulked up to 270. So like you said, he was a skinny kid coming out of high school, but he became a much thicker kid when he got to, he was a linebacker in like he was listed as a linebacker. He's like 220. Yeah. He was closer to Keon Keeley type of frame, or high school kid than he was anything else. But yeah, he's that kind of guy. Let's dive into his strengths. I think, like you had mentioned, thick, powerful frame, good length, not elite length, but good length, good initial burst and closing speed. He's not a super twitchy guy, but I think he gets off well. I think his pad level is more consistently good than Keon's, but he has to improve there too. Ryan already talked about this, top-notch run defender and edge setter. Also, like Keon, really strong hands. And that's so important for defensive linemen. You have to have heavy hands. It's like I like comparing line play to boxing. The great fighters are the guys. It doesn't matter what your size is, but you've got really powerful hands. You've got heavy hands. And you could have two boxers of the same size, and one guy's a knockout guy and the other guy's a technician, right? That's just it's a God-given gift, in my opinion. Brennan, to me, has heavy hands from what I can see on film. And he's a motor. He's a tough kid. He plays hard. He battles. There's some work needed, a lot of technical work needed, which is surprising when you consider the program he plays in. But I think there's a lot of room for him to improve, which is another reason why I think, even though you and I disagree a little bit on where he's at right now, which is like we both view him as top 100 guys, but, you're 35 to 50, I'm 50 to 75-ish, to 100 kind of guy. We see the ceiling the same way. He's got the ceiling to be a top 25, 30 guy, in my opinion. It's just going to, he's just going to have to continue developing that frame. He's an interesting kid too, and we're going to see his film, and I don't know if you can really see it from this film, but you can see it on game film and you can see it at camps. He's got a really weird gait, and I think it causes some to not appreciate his athleticism. I've always said this about Rod Smith. I'm a Broncos fan. You're going to remember Rod Smith.
Yep.
People always thought Rod Smith was a little slow, and I said he's not slow. That's why he has a 75-yard touchdown in the Super Bowl. He has a weird gait, so he doesn't run smooth. He's not a smooth runner. Michael Floyd was this way at Notre Dame. People were shocked that Michael Floyd ran a 4.4 at combine. I said, no, I'm not. He just had a weird gait. Brennan has this weird kind of side-to-side kind of gait that makes him look like he's lumbering, but he's not lumbering. You know what I mean? It's a little deceptive to me, and I think that's caused some people to kind of misconstrue his level of athleticism. I think it does.
And if you go back to his 2020 film, which was him as a sophomore, which I did before the show, he hasn't gained obviously the mass to his frame as much. So he is also looks lumbering and is also a little bit awkward looking as a runner as well. He kind of looks like a praying mantis in that film. And I think he got a lot more explosive as a junior.
Yeah. The tools were there. I like the tools. I just think that, his gait kind of throws some people off. We're going to start with his sophomore film because there's just not a lot of good. There's some good film on. If you like to watch game film, there's a couple games online of his that you can go watch. I always encourage you, if you can find game film, watch game film. And so you can see the good plays and the bad plays, and that's why coaches will watch game film. Because I remember one time got film of a running back. I'm like, this kid's really good. And he'd have about 4 or 5 big runs a game, and then you'd watch the game film, and you're like, he takes about half the plays off. He doesn't like contact. He doesn't block anyone, and he walks back to the huddle after every play. It was like, okay, I don't know if I like this kid, and that's why you want to see those things. But we're going to start off with his sophomore film because I do think that's just there's more of it than there is of his junior. When we'll watch a little junior film, but there's not a lot there, to be honest with you, from a highlight standpoint. Like, it's hard to dive into game film in this kind of format. Maybe we might do that over the summer, but there's a reason we do highlights. It's just a little bit more fits well in this type of format. But if you can watch some game film, there is some junior game film. You had a game on ESPN this year against Drew Allers High School where you can see that. So here we go. Let's watch a little Brennan Vernon film.
So to preface this, if we can go back to the beginning, Brian, just so we know, when we see those arrows, we're not talking about the end man on the line of scrimmage. We're talking about that defensive lineman head up on the tackle.
Yep. That guy right there. This is that fight that I was talking about. Like, this kid's just bad. He's not using his hands real effectively here. Now, like you talked about, there's a lot of technical work needed for him. But you can see the motor. You can see the battle. You can see him compete. And that's what I liked about him when I saw him at camp is, the kid gets out. He wants to take reps. He wants to work. He wants to get in there. He wants to compete. And you see that thick frame there. He's just a different built kid. He's legit 6'4", 6'5". I mean, he's a tall kid.
Yep.
But you just see the thick lower half. Look how big this is as a sophomore. You can see that big lower half, that real thick lower half.
And he filled out even more as a junior, which is really nice to see.
Trying to see where he is on this film over here. I think he's up top. Yep, that's him up top. All right, this is him up top up here. See here? That's him right there. See this motor? He's just like, he reminds me kind of like Kurt Hinish from a motor standpoint. Just way better skills. No disrespect to Kurt, but there's just things Brennan can do that Kurt can never do. And I'm not saying he's a nose tackle. I'm just talking about the motor. I'm just comparing the motor, just the hustle that he has. He's not even in his, like, look at him. He's late getting down to a stance and he still explodes off the ball, right? Like, you see that? Yeah. Like, he's still kind of bending down and boom, comes out of a stance quick. I love it.
And I think someone commented at one point, like, is he going to be an inside guy eventually? I don't think so. I mean, could he
can
gain it?
Right.
But like I think he's too good of an athlete that he's going to have to make that transition. Right. Like he's a good athlete at defensive end.
Right. Like this right here, this is how they ask him to play. This whole run down the middle of a guy, that's what they ask him to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is what they say, hey, look, it's an odd man front. It's a two-gapping front.
Yep.
That's what they ask him to do. I do not like it.
No, I would like them to just kind of take the shackles off sometimes, and just let them go.
Mm-hmm. You can see him again playing backside. He's got to play the quarterback. Once he decides the running back's got it, you see that redirect. This redirect right here is one of those things you see. Okay, this kid's got a little bit of COD in him, change of direction in his game.
Yep. And I still like how he stays square though. Even if this quarterback does pull, he can still redirect and recover.
Yep. And it's also impressive too, because playing a 5 technique, it's easy to get sucked inside when you're playing a 5 technique. Absolutely. It's because you're just already kind of there. If the guy works inside, you're just kind of already inside a little bit more than normal. So really good patience there, and then just closing quickly on the football.
And it looks like the competition he's playing, it looks like they have some size working against him too. So I imagine he plays in
he plays in Northeast Ohio. He plays against like some Columbus schools, but mostly like Cleveland. He plays against some really, really good football teams. Eastern Ohio.
Right, again, you can't see it from that angle, but he stays square and he's able to redirect and make a play.
Mm-hmm. See that weird gait, how his shoulders kind of go side to side? But trust me, he's moving.
He's moving.
He's moving.
And great effort, like you said. It's got the effort too.
Yep. And you'll see that not just on highlight tapes, you'll see that in game film too. Kid plays hard. I love this right here, Ryan. This kid tries to go for his feet, and he's immediately gets his hands down, his feet back, but his feet never stop moving. A lot of kids, when they try to get cut, they stop their feet and they just put they kind of panic, and they're like, I got to use my hands. His hands and feet work together here. He never stops moving his feet. Really nice job of beating the cut block here. I like this.
Yep.
It's a terrible cut block attempt. Like, don't get it twisted. It's not like, oh, look at that great technique and he beat it. You can see the hands and feet working together well there.
And good balance. Good balance too.
Yep.
All right, so here he is, more of a 5. Working down the line of scrimmage. Again, playing with effort. You can
see the frame in that one.
You can see the frame. And again, this is sophomore film compared to Keeley's junior film that we just watched. But like you can see that he's a slightly less caliber of athlete, but still a good one. Still a very good one.
We'll watch a couple more plays here, and then we're going to get to a couple senior clips. Again, there's not a lot. This is one of my favorite plays of him on this clip. He's completely out of control, right? Loses his balance, right? But look at him as he's falling down. He's still trying to make the play. He's falling backwards, and he's still trying to make the play. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they show this because he just blows up this tackle. And I think this is Ignatius. I think this is against St. Ignatius.
And he blows out this tackle with one arm, too.
Yes.
Balance. Like, there's some strength there right there.
Yes.
There's a lot of pop.
But look at him, like, still, like, oh, crap, the ball, like, I'm falling down, and he's still trying. I love this kid's motor. I really do. He's a try-hard guy with a lot of talent. Absolutely. Here's the rare 4-down clip. This is against Pick Central. Look at that. That's good block destruction right there.
That is. Quick inside position and active hands.
Yep. Again, like Keon, keeping those eyes inside, seeing through the guy he's working against. This is also against Pick Central. Pickering Central is where the Stiles brothers went to school.
Yeah.
Like here, he's a little late with his hands, but he's so strong he can kind of get off of it.
Yep.
Gets to the quarterback,
Yep. Even when his hands are late, though, they're active. There's a lot of activity there.
Yep. All right, let's get to a couple junior clips here. Like I said, there's not a lot. So we'll just get to those here real quick and show you those. And then we'll wrap up with Drake Bowen.
And as Brian's pulling it up, when you start to see the junior, just look at the frame. Look how much more filled out he is.
He looks like he got a little bit taller as well.
He does, yep. Taller, and just that body is just more filled out. He looks.
And the thing that I was nervous about when a guy does kind of have that little bit of a fill out is his feet slow down. His feet sped up. He's quicker as a junior than he was as a sophomore.
I thought he was infinitely more explosive this year than 2020.
Yep. Which is kind of funny because he was ranked as a 5-star off sophomore film. And he's dropped now that he's become a better football player. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that he's committed. See what I'm saying about that weird gait?
Yep.
He's got that weird kind of a herky-jerky style, but he's moving.
You know who's like that a little bit, and this is definitely not a comparison because I don't think that they're the same type of player, but Nick Bosa is kind of like that too. Like he kind of has that weird wiggle, you know, but it's just he can get going.
Yep.
Just effort here.
This, you can see the get off a little bit here. Now, he's got to work on his angle. I think he's a little bit too vertical. He kind of bows a little bit. So, like, that needs work. You know, when you're as big and strong as he is, I want you going right for that outside shoulder. But you can see the get off here is good. Like, that's what I like. And then you see him coming back into the play because he just doesn't. Kid just does. Like, if the whistle has not blown, Keon is playing. I mean, Brennan's playing ball. He's not stopping until the whistle blows. I love kids that are highly ranked that are also try-hard guys.
He's a worker. Yeah.
I love that. I love that because he's going to play with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
Yep.
Where he's not going to I'm Brennan Vernon. I'm a 5-star. I don't have, he doesn't play like that at all. Again, it's got to move his feet better, right? He kind of just absorbs this contact, but that's what he's asked to do. He's two-gapping. I hate it. I hate it. But you can see the motor. You can see him playing hard.
You can see the jolt, too, at the beginning of the rep with his hands. Yep. I mean, here he's in a 3.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. See, he stands up, right? So that he's the consistency with his pad level's got to be there. Like he's not. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the redirect though, for being as tall as he is, there as far as his pad level is not bad though, which is kind of interesting to see.
His balance on that play for how tall he was, I thought shows, like you had mentioned earlier, really good balance. That's why I think that worked. And we're gonna watch some St. Ignatius film, and then we're gonna move on to Drake Bowen.
And I think that the one thing that we keep reiterating is that I think Keeley and Vernon really fit well together, right?
Completely different ends. Completely different ends.
Keeley, think more Viper, kind of what Isaiah Foskey plays, then strong side defensive end for a guy like Vernon.
This is against Cleveland St. Ignatius, obviously one of the top programs in the state. This is terrible technique, but the toughness and the strength is what I like. Just throws this kid down. The technique has to, needs work. I mean, Keon Keeley, to me, from a technical standpoint, is far more advanced than Brennan Vernon is, which is partly why I don't have Brennan ranked as high as you, but also why we have the same exact feeling on his ceiling and why I'm excited about landing him because the tools are there. I think there's this assumption that because he comes from Mentor, which is considered a top program, that he's, some advanced kid. There's a lot of need for improvement from a technical standpoint here, but
for sure.
But that actually makes that play even more impressive.
Yep.
Because he's able to do that without getting extension or using his hands.
Yep.
I mean,
I would love to see him in the weight room. I imagine this kid gets after it a little bit in the weight room.
Oh yeah. Face gets all red.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's better use of his hands there. All right, so that is Brennan Vernon.
Yep.
Obviously, a big commitment for Notre Dame, literally and figuratively. Really strong pickup for the Irish. And then let's get down.